I'm thinking about giving up and saying goodbye to this world. And all of a sudden I hear this voice that's telling me to lift up my mattress in this little jail cell when I already know that there's nothing in this jail cell. Jail cells are searched for contraband. There's nothing in this jail cell, but this voice, this powerful voice, was so persistent, it told me, lift up your mattress, lift up your mattress, lift up your mattress. I'm going crazy, but I obeyed the voice. I lifted up my mattress, and do you want to know what I found?
Hi Derek, you've got one of the most incredible life stories that I've ever come across, but you had a really difficult beginning. So let's start there. Talk us through your childhood.
I grew up without a father. My mother, she met her knight in shining armor, so to speak, and we quickly got moved from where we were living at to my mother's boyfriend's hometown. When I first laid eyes on him, I think I was about 6 years old. I had a feeling that came across me that I really can't describe, but I know that it wasn't a good feeling. And before I knew it, our little life that we had with my mom, my sister, and my brother was just abruptly turned upside down. And so we moved from where we were living at, we moved to his hometown. When I was introduced to my mother's boyfriend, I was introduced as a problem that needed to be fixed. My mother said that as a young man, I needed some discipline. I didn't even know what the word discipline meant at the time, but it didn't take long. It was almost like before we could get our stuff unpacked in this new place where we moved to, the abuse started. My mom was being abused. I was being abused in the name of instilling discipline in me. All of us quickly realized that my mom's knight in shining armor, he came with a lot of baggage, drugs, alcohol, quick temper. Now, where we were living at, we never had a lot of money, but we had a pretty good life. My granddad had passed away and left us a beautiful home with a nice big backyard. But when we moved with my mother's boyfriend, I finally realized what poverty meant because we were surrounded by poverty. It was one of the worst houses I had ever seen. It was old, it was rotten. The whole place, it reeked of despair, poverty, and manure. I think at some point my mom realized that she had made a mistake, but there was no turning back. She had sold the house, and this was going to be our new home for better or for worse. The abuse was physical, it was mental, it was verbal. One night, I woke up abruptly out of my sleep to my mom screaming. And even as a little boy, I wanted to protect her. I wanted to run in and save her, but I was just a scrawny little boy who stuttered. So I covered my head under a mountain of covers and waited for the morning. When the morning came, I realized that my mom had 2 black eyes. It was like we was in a war zone. So I just feel helpless and had some questions about this wonderful world that we lived in. My mom was going through a very traumatic situation. Imagine somebody selling you this dream of this oasis, and you give up everything to follow an individual, and then you find out that not only was it not true, it was far from the truth. She was struggling because it wasn't just a decision that she had made, but it was a decision for the children as well. And my mother's boyfriend, he used to go and get drunk and come back and beat her up. He used to beat me too. I never heard him, say he loved me. I never heard any kind of affection from him. Remember, the introduction to our relationship was, I was a problem that needed to be fixed. A young man without a father, and he was the one who was supposed to instill this word called discipline on the inside of me. And so I was beat several times too. And my mom, she was just overwhelmed, and she just decided to give up on life. So she took a lot of sleeping pills to try to end her life. She wanted to commit suicide. And when she went to the hospital, they pumped her stomach, they revived her, and sent her back home to endure more abuse.
Beyond that, outside the home, you then experienced childhood bullying as well. You called a lot of names, hurtful names. Can you talk us through that as well?
Growing up without a family, for those of you, anybody who has a family, a lot of people, I look at them, they take their family for granted. You have fellowship and a whole list of other benefits to having a family, even just to look out and say, you know what, I'm not alone. There's mom, there's dad, there's cousins, there's aunts. And like I told you, I was skinny, I stuttered, and I was a prime candidate to get bullied. And so it didn't take long. They just had their way with me. I got beat up, made fun of because I stuttered. And so I was called all kind of names, skinny, stinky. But the thing that really hurt the most is when they called me a bastard, because I never had a dad. Didn't know who my dad was. That's the word that really, for some reason, it hurt more than the other words. All of it hurt it. But the word that really cut the most was calling me a bastard because I didn't have a dad. It just added to the pile of hurt that I was surrounded by. Dealing with the abuse at home and, to go to school, to try to escape some of that, and to be bullied at school too. It was just overwhelming. And it scarred me in a lot of ways. My mother's boyfriend would go get drunk. He would go and party and come back late at night ready for a fight. But this particular day, my sister and I, we was outside and we were playing. It was still daylight. My mom came with a funny request. She said, listen, I want you guys to go in, take a bath, and get ready for bed. Me and my sister, we looked at each other and we were like, it's still daylight outside and you want us to go take a bath and get ready for bed? It's summertime. We want to have a good time. We were out there playing in the mud, making mud cakes. Just enjoying each other, me and my sister. And as she was talking, we looked down and we saw this gun in her hand. It's like the light caught this shiny silver gun in her hand. And we was asking, like, we wonder what she was doing with that gun. What's going on? So we went in, we got ready for bed. We was in our rooms and we were just laying low. And our mom said, tonight, if you guys hear any noise, don't come out until I tell you it's okay to come out. And later on that night, sure enough, our mother's boyfriend came home ready for a fight. He was cursing her out. She had locked him out to protect herself, and he tried to kick in the door, and she just shot him through the door. Now, I had never really heard gunshots. On TV, I had heard them. But when the first gun blast, the sound of the sound of the gun just blast and broke through the silence of that night, I'll never forget that sound. And I knew exactly what it was, and I knew exactly what she had done. When she shot him, to be honest with you, I had mixed emotions. I was like, finally, we have gotten rid of him. Maybe the abuse will stop. That's what I was thinking as a little boy. And it was so many emotions. And so when we woke up the next morning, my mom, she gave me this funny request. She said, get the water hose and go out in the front of the porch and clean up all of that blood. As I was cleaning the blood, so many emotions was going on in my mind. You don't even know how to feel. But deep down inside, I feel a little joy because the man who had tormented us so long is gone. Finally got rid of him. I thought that he was gone forever. And to be honest with you, I was only a little boy. I had a certain amount of joy about it, that this chapter of our life was finally over. It wasn't over. I think about 3 weeks later, by the way, my mom never went to jail. The police, the neighbors, everybody knew what was going on. The police, they knew our address and telephone number. They almost had it on speed dial because they was there every other weekend. They knew about the abuse. My mother's boyfriend had been warned time and time again to keep his hands off of my mother. So my mom never went never spent one day in jail because they knew that it was self-defense and they knew the story about my mom. About 3 weeks later, there was a knock at the door, and to my amazement, it was my mother's boyfriend. But at first, I squinted my eyes because he was wrapped up like a mummy. He had all of these bandages on, and he was leaning on a crutch. And he was with 2 of his family members. Couldn't believe that he was alive, and I was thinking he was just coming to visit. Evidently, he was coming to live with us, and my mom agreed to nurse him back to health. He was blind in one eye, he was on crutches, and somehow he had convinced my mom to believe that him being shot would change his character. He told my mom that he was a different person now. Things were going to be different, and he was sorry for what he had done. But that wasn't true either. After she nursed him back to health, come to find out, some things never change. Not only did the abuse continue, but we didn't know that he had recently divorced. We didn't know he had other children, and he had, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 other kids while he was with my mom, and he never married her. One of my promises to myself growing up was when I get big enough, I'm going to stop him from abusing me and my mom. And as soon as I can, I'm going to get a plane, a train, a bus. Even if I have to walk, I'm going to leave this place. I had no idea. The individuals that were coming to buy the cocaine, they were coming to rob us. Me and my friend were coming to rob us blind. They had no intention on buying anything. They were going to take it. And they had robbed and killed before I didn't even know it. I did not know that I was walking into a trap. By the way, these individuals, I don't know, I think I was 23, 24. I was young, but they were even younger than I was. I think they probably was maybe 20, 22, 19. So they came to the meeting. The high roller had a bodyguard with him. I had a bodyguard with me. I really never liked guns growing up. I never carried one. I just, maybe because of what happened when I was younger, I just never liked carrying guns. Everybody had guns except me. And all of a sudden, our guests arrived. The 2 gentlemen who wanted to buy the drugs. They were acting weird, fidgety. You guys are going to rob us. You guys are going to do something to us. I was like, what are you guys talking about? I said, listen, just count your money. Count your money and take the drugs, and everybody's good. So I removed myself from the negotiation, and I heard them negotiating. And I heard him say, hey, man, if you want it, I'll drop the price $1,000. All of a sudden, while they were talking, I heard a voice. Now, when I say I heard a voice, I don't know if it was an audible voice. I don't know if it was a thought, but I obeyed it. The voice simply said, hey, go and look out your back door. By the time I took 1 foot outside my back door, I heard gunshots. So I ran. I ran as fast as I could. It seems like everything was in slow motion. I could even feel the bullets go past my face. That wasn't the first time that I had been running. I had been running all of my life from the bullies, from the abuse, from the poverty. It was my face with a big sign behind it that said wanted for murder. Conspiracy to commit murder. I had my hat, I pulled it low, and I snuck out of Walmart. I found myself in a cheap hotel hiding from the authorities, and I called the person who I had tried to hide the truth about my drug dealing all of these years. I called my mom. I told her the truth about everything, all of the drug activity, about what I was doing. And to my amazement, she still loved me. She told me this simple word. She said, if you didn't do anything, if you didn't do what they say that you have done, turn yourself in. Don't run, because it's only going to make things worse. So I turned myself in. The detective said the reason why we're charging you with murder is because, number 1, you guys were selling drugs. Number 2, there's a person that's dead. Number 3, somebody committed robbery. It's your house. We have contacted the bodyguard He's been shot several times. He's in intensive care, getting ready to go through emergency surgery. But we talked to him just long enough to find out that he told us what happened. He said that you robbed them and you shot them. Me. And I'll never forget it. I fainted. I laid on the floor and sobbed like an infant because they had all of the proof to send me to prison. Somebody's dead. And one of the men who got shot said I did it. They had all of the motive. They had everything they needed to send me to prison. It says in the Bible that it rains on the just and the unjust. What does that mean? That means that no matter who you are in this world, you're not going to be able to escape the ups and downs, the trials, the struggles. You're going to have some challenges in this world. But sometimes in life, you can be on certain levels, a certain level of depression, a certain level of financial ruin, a certain level of you being divorced, a certain level of poverty. But just when I thought that I could not go any lower, I find myself charged with first degree murder. When they took me to jail, when I'm talking about the levels of despair, the levels of trouble, I thought that I couldn't go any lower. I really thought about just giving up. And when I say giving up, you know what I mean. I mean taking a sheep and tying it around my neck and saying goodbye to this old world. They tried to kill me, but now I'm charged with it and everybody's looking at me. So they put me in this jail just when I thought things couldn't get any worse. They put me in the bottom of the jail, a special place. It was called S Module, special. And when I walked in, it was so loud, concrete, and you were locked down for 23 hours a day, 7 days a week. You only got out one time a day for an hour to 30 minutes. That's it. Other than that, you were locked down like animals in solitary confinement. Some people in there were deranged. Some people were in there that needed medication. Some people in there were stone cold real killers. Some people were baby molesters. I was locked in with them in a little bitty cell, and it was so loud. And in the midst, I was getting ready to give up. I was looking for a sheet to say, you know what? I'm done with this world. Something supernatural happened that night. I heard a voice. I don't know if it came from me, if it came from outside, if I didn't know what it was, but this voice carried weight. This voice was louder and more powerful than any other voice. And I said, I'm going crazy. I have been drinking. I've been smoking for 2 years straight. I'm having hot flashes. I'm having cold flashes. I'm at the bottom of the jail cell. I'm thinking about giving up and saying goodbye to this world. And all of a sudden I hear this voice that's telling me to lift up my mattress in this little jail cell when I already know that there's nothing in this jail cell. Jail cells are searched for contraband. There's nothing in this jail cell, but this voice, this powerful voice, was so persistent, it told me to lift up your mattress, lift up your mattress, lift up your mattress. I'm going crazy, but I obeyed the voice. I lifted up my mattress, and do you want to know what I found? I found the keys to unlock every door. I found the answer to all of the questions I had even as a little boy. You want to know what that key was? Supernatural key. I found a Bible and I picked it up and I did something that I had not done before. Remember I told you I went to church. But I had a religion and I listened to other people, what other people said about this God up above. I didn't know. And I picked it up that night, late that night, and I began to read it. And it was like the words of those pages, those 66 books, started to minister to me, not on the outside with head nodders, but on the inside. And I tell you, that night, it was like I was washed with a liquid love. The stories about Jesus, about how he laid his life down. But not only did he lay it down, but he picked it up again. And he did all of this. He suffered the humiliation on the cross for me. Not so that I could have religion, but I could have a relationship with him. It was like something happened that night. And I said, God, if you real, because I told you I had my doubts. I said, God, if you really real, if you get me out of this, because you're the only one that's going to be able to get me out of this. If you can get me out of this, I will serve you forevermore. And that night, I felt so good. I told you I hadn't had peace in a long time. I hadn't slept through the whole night for years. That night, I slept so good. I had a peace on the inside of me. Even though I was locked up, I had a supernatural assurance that somehow, some way, God was going to work this thing out. Now, I didn't know how. I still had questions, but something happened that night. When I picked up the Bible and began to read it, I was free on the inside, even though I was surrounded by bars. But I knew somehow, some way, something about this Bible, that's my key. I was being changed from the inside. I had more joy. I had more peace. I was optimistic. Even my lawyer was telling me, he's like, yeah, you're going to prison. You're going to prison. But I kept reading the word. I kept reading the word. I kept eating my spiritual food. It says in the Bible that man should not live by bread alone. You cannot just eat hamburgers. You have to feed your spirit. I didn't know it at the time, but I was feeding my spirit. As I was reading the word, I was being transformed from the inside out. Now, mind you, I didn't know what was going to happen. I had people telling me, people that love me, well-meaning people telling me, even my mom, even my sister, I will be glad when they go ahead and sentence you so at least you can know what you're facing. I didn't know. I was in limbo. And one day, as I was reading the word, the Lord said, all things are possible for those who believe. Why are you preparing to go to prison? Because I said, all things are possible for those who believe. And if you believe and don't doubt, you can say to this mountain, any mountain be removed, and it will obey you. That Bible was beginning to release the power of it. And I was being changed to believe, even though I was locked up with a one-way ticket to prison, and everybody was cheerleading, saying, you're going to prison. Everybody had gave up. I was all alone. And God was asking me to believe, only believe. So I read the Bible like I never did before. Every time I went to court, they would say, well, we don't have enough information. Go back to your jail. That happened time and time again. I was beginning to think now, am I tripping? God, are you really going to perform this? All things are possible for those who believe. So I'm not going to lie. I have my doubts, but you can have doubts in your mind, but have faith in your heart. And one night, it was Thursday at 12 o'clock would be Good Friday. And that Sunday would be Resurrection Sunday. Some people call it Easter, when Jesus died and was resurrected, Easter. And so I had a visitor that Thursday, and that night would be Good Friday. So the visitor said, I've talked to your lawyer, and you're supposed to have court tomorrow. And I just want to let you know, don't get your hopes up, because what's going to happen tomorrow is you're going to be continued. You're not going to court. And I was hurt and I was doubting. That night, I did what I had did so many times just to get some peace. I read my word, read the Bible. This time, right in the midst of my despair, right in the midst of me doubting, I heard that voice again. This time, the voice called me by my name. I realize it now that was the voice of the Spirit of the living God speaking to me then, but I didn't really understand then what it was. So the Spirit of the living God asked me a question this time. It said, how long are you going to read my Bible? How long are you going to read my word and not believe what it says? All things are possible for those who believe. I said, oh, I do believe. It said, no, you do not. Because if you believe, faith without action, faith without works is dead. Pack up all of your belongings if you really believe, because this time tomorrow, you're going to be a free man. So, with a little doubt, I began to obey the voice and beginning to get ready. I packed up all of my belongings and I did this simple thing. I know that God responds by faith. I wrote a letter to my girlfriend and I said, I told you that I would be here on the back of the letter, and I mailed it off the next morning. That next morning was Good Friday. I heard the jailer say my name. Said, Derrick, it's court. I looked at the clock and it was 10:30 on a Good Friday. I had never saw those doors open up past 8:30 for court, but that day, those doors opened wide for me. Normally, when we went to court, they piled us in a van, shackled from head to toe, squeezed in a little van. This day was like no other day. It was like I was being chauffeured. It was like I was somebody special. I got on the van and it was only me. It was like I was somebody important, somebody that mattered. But I was somebody important. I was a child of the King. God loved me so much, he orchestrated the whole thing. Even me getting out on a strategic day. It's like all of those years I had been living, it was like everything was dull. The sky wasn't like a vivid blue. It was kind of dampened. I walked out of that jail that day on Good Friday, all of those years ago, armed with not a religion, but a relationship with Jesus Christ. And guess what? Remember, I told you I had some doubts about this God. Even when I was a little boy, come to find out, God loved me so much. And he had been with me all of my life and protected me and guided me all of my life. Even when I was wrong, even when I was doing some things I shouldn't do, he had been there all along. And it was clear to me that yes, he's real. Yes, he loves me. Yes, he's supernatural. But if I was going to please him, I had to do it his way. And his way was to walk by faith and not by sight. And so I got out of jail and I moved to Atlanta, Georgia. My dreams of moving to start my own business with bags of money never happened. But I walked away with something more powerful, something more valuable than any amount of money. I walked out with a relationship with Jesus Christ, and that will sustain me for the rest of my life.
I'm a man feeling that. Beautiful. Oh, that was amazing.
You got me crying in here, man.
Man, me as well. Me as well.
There was this desire in my heart that I never told anybody. It was my dad. I had a longing to find out who my dad was. Growing up as a little boy, I never prayed for me to be reunited with my dad because my mama never told me who my dad was. She said that I'm your mother and I'm your father. And she took that information to the grave with her. And so there was nobody that knew anything about this man. My last name is Frank. I found Mr. Frank and he said, you found me, huh? He said, when I got back from Vietnam, your mother was already pregnant with you and she said that she had been raped and I never saw her again. So I never even asked the Lord to help me find my dad. I never said a prayer growing up to help me find my dad because I thought that it was too difficult for God. So yes, I love God. Yes, I've seen many, many miracles, but there was a certain thing that I just suppressed. I suppressed it so deep that I thought I could even hide it from God. And so I wanted to leave my job. And my wife, she got frustrated with me. She said, you're so unhappy with this job. I'm tired of you complaining. Why don't you just leave? I said, no, I can't leave. I have to hear from God. I went to my church and there was this powerful woman of God. She lays her hands on my head for prayer. And she says these words that changed everything. She said, God, he's going to heal your heart and restore the relationship with you and your dad. Wow. Number one, I did not ask anything about my dad. By the way, I don't have a dad. It's been 48 years. he's probably long gone. And even if he is alive, maybe he doesn't even want anything to do with me. So I left the meeting, to be honest with you. I left that meeting with this woman of God who I honor. I just thought maybe she missed it. We only human. We don't get it right all of the time. And so something weird happened. For 3 months after that, she kept coming to my wife saying, when I laid hands on your husband, something shifted in him. Something changed in him. You would think after 48 years, I finally got what I had been not really praying for, but my desires on the inside of my heart, something I had longed for all of my life, to be reunited with my dad, or at least have some answers. I have the number in hand. You would think I ran and speed dialed that number, but I didn't. It was like I was almost that little boy again, age 7, football games, baseball games, on the fishing bank, just longing to have a dad to be with me. And those days never came. It was like I was 48 years old, but I feel like I was 8 years old again. And my wife, she looks at me, she said, you've been waiting for this day all of your life. But like a sadness came over me, a fear came over me. I didn't know what it was. An anxiousness came over me. I said, you got to pray for me. You got to pray for me. She lays her hands on my head and she prays. She said, God, give him the strength to do what he's been wanting to do all of his life. I got the strength. I called the number. The voice on the other end of the phone call, he said, what is your name? Where you from? And what's your mama's name? And after I answered that, he says, you're my son. And I've been hiding from you all of my life. Do you come for war? Or do you come for peace? Because you have every right to come for war. I have been hiding from you all of my life because I was married and your mom was married. And I hid the truth all of these years. But I always thought about you. Not a month went by after all of these years that I didn't think about you, but I hid from the truth. He said, do you come for war or do you come for peace? I said, God has done a work in my heart. I said, I have to forgive you. I forgive you. Who knows? Maybe I can be a blessing to you. He started weeping uncontrollably. And he was like, all of these years, you finally found me and you want to love me. I'm just overwhelmed. God is so strategic. I found my dad when I was 48 years old and my dad was 84. Once again, 84, 48, 48, 84. Strategic. Perfect timing of God. My dad says, man, I do not know what God is doing. I've had cancer. I don't know how long I got to live, but God is so good. He's so awesome that he allowed me to get things right with you. And my dad just almost passes out. And he's like overwhelmed and he's crying. And he's like, man, I do not know what God is doing. All of the things that I've done wrong in my older years, God is blessing me. I can't take any more blessings. God brought everything full circle before my dad was to leave this earth. My dad died a year and a half later after I met him. And right before, as I was closing his casket, I had a tear in my eye, but joy on the inside of me. It's weird. I was crying and I had a smile on my face because I remembered what the woman of God said. She said God was going to heal my heart and restore the relationship with me and my dad. As I was closing that casket, I was reminded that God did exactly what he said he would do.
He was just the sweetest man. I just love him to death. I have closure. The last words that, we spoke at the airport, he says, I don't know if I'm going to see you again. I say, I don't know if you're going to see me again either. I say, but if you don't, save a seat for me. And he said, I will. And I thank God for the time that we had. And I'm sorry I didn't get more, but I thank God for the time that we had. I couldn't ask for nothing better.
I thought I was somebody's bastard. I thought I was damaged goods. I thought I was broke beyond fixing. I thought I was just full of depression. I thought I was a drug addict. I thought I was homeless. What about you? This is for anybody who has labels put on you. Add a so-called in front of it. So-called damaged goods. So-called you're too tall. So-called you're too fat. So-called you live on the wrong side of the tracks. So-called you'll never be anything. So-called you're limited. I say so-called because when you're born again, old things have passed away. Behold, you are a new creation in Christ Jesus. I was never somebody's so-called bastard. I was a reborn king, and so are you if you believe in Jesus Christ.
Did you ever cross paths with your mum's boyfriend again, or have any kind of relationship with him as an adult?
As he got older, he had severe diabetes and he had both of his legs cut off. And so I remember one day I was calling him, asking to see how he was, how he was doing. I told him, I said, I just want to let you know that I forgive you for everything. He said, I forgive you too. And we both cried like babies. When I say forgiveness, I mean, I really forgave him and he really forgave me. Now, you might ask, what did I do to him? I did a lot of stuff to him. I judged him. I talked bad about him, but I learned through God to love him, not just talking about it, but actually loving him and building a relationship with him. By the way, some of the things that I judged him about, the abuse of women, different things, you do know that I was guilty of it too. We have to be careful with judging other people because we're guilty of, nobody is totally without sin. So yes, me and him built our relationship up and it was based on love. And I really, really learned how to forgive him and to actually love him. He's gone to be with the Lord, but I know without a shadow of a doubt that he loved me and I loved him.